Meet Virginia. Meet Virginia.
Yes, we're going to meet Virginia, as in Virginia Tech. The 2014 Hokies. My college previews continue as we talk about Virginia Tech. And from 2008 to 2011, double-digit winning seasons might have been taken for granted in Blacksburg. I mean, they had no fewer than 10 wins during that four-year stretch. But the last 2 years, they kind of missed those days because of the fact that they only won 15 games combined the last 2 years. 7 victories a couple years ago and 8 this past season. And the season ended on a sour note, having a horrible fourth quarter against UCLA in the Sun Bowl after playing pretty nip and tuck with the Bruins the first 3 quarters. Defensively, Vodtek's going to be just fine, and we'll talk about Bud Foster's unit in just a second. But for head coach Frank Beamer, he enters year number 28 at Vodtek. How long has he been there? To put it in perspective, I was in high school when this guy was coaching at Virginia Tech. Okay, that tells you I'm getting up there in years. Okay, but seriously, for Vodtek offense, they were dismal last year. They were pathetic, especially with the ground game, which we'll break down in a second. The first quarterback, okay, Logan Thomas, he was a veteran. He had been there for a while, and yeah, he did have his moments. But overall, maybe I'm just off my rocker Vodtek fans or anybody who knows a lot about college football. I didn't think Logan Thomas was all that. In fact, I thought he was just average. Whoever going to get quarterback this year, whether it's going to be the fifth-year senior Michael Leal or whether it's going to be the former Texas Tech quarterback Michael Brewer, I think the team's going to be no worse. In fact, they could be even better at QB, whoever they go with. And Brewer, by the way, does have a pretty good arm. We saw that in Lubbock a couple of years ago when he played in limited time for the Red Raiders. But they could go with Leo. Again, he's been there for a while. Still up for grabs. Here we are, August 18th, and we still don't know who the starting quarterback's going to be. Frank Beamer still has not made an announcement. We do know that the most recent major scrimmage they had, which was this past weekend, both got an equal amount of snaps. So it looks like a toss-up there as far as who the starting Silman caller will be for the Hokies. Running game has got to pick up. Averaged 111 yards per game on the ground. It's a pretty low number. Trey Edmonds, though, does show promise. Last season had that 77-yard touchdown run in the opener against Alabama. Not too many teams can take it to distance against the Crimson Tide defense. Marshawn Williams, he'll be a big addition to this team, just a freshman. Big guy for a running back, 224 pounds, but he can move for a guy that size, so don't let his size fool you. Receiving, they're going to be experienced in this area. Top 3 receivers come back for Virginia Tech, which will certainly help whoever QBs this team. Joshua Stanford, Willie Byrne, Dimitri Knowles, all, by the way, return for Virginia Tech. And tight end, the guy that they didn't have last year who should help out, that's Ryan Malik, had a shoulder injury in 2013. The offensive line will be the big focus. You do return the tackles. On the left side, Jonathan McLaughlin, and on the right side, you return Lawrence Gibson. Stacy Searles, the offensive line coach, you might remember previously was offensive line coach for Texas. He's serious about making changes on the offensive line. In fact, during the springtime, he did. The returning center, as well as one of the guards, he benched during the spring. The other guard, by the way, Caleb Ferris, did not bench, but he moved from guard to center. For Ferris, not too big of a transaction because he played center 2 years ago. The defense, this is where Vodtek will feel a little bit more secure. Again, last season, they were terrific. While the offense sputtered to average just 23 points a game, Vodtek's defense only gave up 19, one of the best averages in the country. Bud Foster, the defensive coordinator, returns most of the starters, 7 of them. And that will include defensive tackle Luther Maddy, should be all ACC this year. And you'll have Daddy Nicholas on one defensive inside. And by the way, a former defensive end, Corey Marshall, they're going to be moving him to the inside. But you do lose defensive end James Gale. But you have most of the guys back up front. Linebacking core will miss Jack Tyler. But now it's an opportunity for fifth-year senior Chase Williams to shine and show what he can do. He'll play the Mike linebacker. The other linebacking position, a guy who had a terrific spring for Vodtek, that is Deion Clark. Secondary will be the strength of this team, in my opinion. They are so difficult to throw against, especially when you have corners that last season combined for 11 picks. That's Kendall Fuller on one side, should be all ACC, and then the other guy, not too bad either, in Brandon Fascison. The safeties, you have Kyson Jarrett and also Detrick Bonner. So this secondary will definitely, if they can live up to the hype, be one of the best in college football. Kicker, A.J. Hughes. He's one of the best in college football. In fact, he's on the Ray Guy list. So the punting position, you don't have to worry about that. That could become very valuable in those close games as far as field position. The kicking department, they got to get this area cleaned up. Whoever they go with the kicker, man, oh man. Hopefully, whether it's the returner or whether it's somebody else, can they please do better than miss 11 field goals? That's right. They missed 11 field goals last year. If that's a high number to you, it is, because that was the second highest number amongst missed field goals in all of college football. The schedule for Virginia Tech, 2 of their 3 non-conference games to me don't look all that challenging, okay, to start the season. That's East Carolina and William & Mary. They'll be 2 of their first 3. But sandwiched in between early September, yeah, they go to Ohio State. That'll be a loss right there. Ohio State just too good. Plus, you're playing that game at the Horseshoe. But because of Tech's defense, how good they are, I think they could, maybe slow Ohio State down and keep the game close. That game might be a little bit closer than you might think. They can look at the rest of the schedule. The other non-conference game, by the way, is against Western Michigan, which will not occur until I believe the last Saturday of September. Conference opener will be at home against Tech. That's the second to last Saturday, the way it appears for Virginia Tech, and they'll get that one at home. Again, that's against the Ramblin' Wreck. October will be the make it or break it month for the Hokies. You play at North Carolina early October, but you do get 2 weeks to prepare for Pittsburgh. They'll be on the road, and the following week you host Miami. I don't think Tech will win all those games, but if they can win at least 2 of the 3, they will be in good position in the Coastal, because the Coastal Division is going to be the most wide open division amongst the 8 divisions for major college football. It's going to be wide open. So I think the winner of this division, don't be surprised if they lose 2 conference games. Looking at the early part of November, matter of fact, the mid part, you're going to be playing Duke, and you get them on the road, and you close out the season at home against your rivals from Charlottesville. Of course, that's the Virginia Cavaliers. Best case scenario, could a 10-2 record happen for Tech? It very well could. Well, I think the Ohio State game is too much to ask Tech for an upset win, unless you know something I don't know. I do think that Tech, with the defensive talent that they have back and the philosophy of the defense that they've had, especially with the secondary, and if the quarterback play improves, and was the big reason why Tech couldn't move the ball, that's the reason why teams just stacked up against the run, because they didn't respect Logan Thomas that much, then I believe that could be one of those X factors into Tech becoming a better offense, is the quarterback play, and that should open things up for both the running game and, of course, the passing game, which should be improved. So 10-2 could happen. Another reason why it could, no Florida State, no Louisville, no Clemson on the schedule, the 3 heavyweights from the opposing division, the Atlantic. Worst case scenario, I think 7-5 for this team. That is, if the offense picks up from where they left off last year and continue to have a horrible time trying to run. And also, too, if Michael Leal or Michael Brewer or whoever they go with the quarterback was not the answer. And by the way, if injuries loom their ugly head on both sides of the ball, 7-5 could very well happen, which I think for this team would be a disappointment. Likely scenario, though, I'm going to go 9-3. While I think Ohio State's not a win for them, and while I do think they'll lose 2 games in the ACC, I don't think anybody else in the Coastal Division is going to go 7-1 or better. I just don't think that's going to happen. So I think Tech getting Miami at home, getting a bye week between North Carolina and Pittsburgh, and also, too, the fact that you don't play the 3 major heavyweights from the opposing division, the Atlantic. I think that right there, plus that defense for Tech should be terrific again. I think Tech will have just enough to win the Coastal Division and go 9-3. But when they play Florida State for the ACC championship game, they'll have very little chance at all. And, of course, you don't need me to tell you that. But for Tech, it'll be an improvement as far as win total. And I think a decent bowl bid for them is a possibility. That's my look at Tech. We'll have another preview soon. Thanks, everybody.